This video tutorial is about rhythm and cadence in standard American English. Have you ever met someone who learnt their English in another country? They start speaking to you and you have no idea what they're saying and you think that they must be speaking in a foreign language until you hear a few words of English. After a while, you realize that they're speaking English, but in a way that you can't follow. Most likely, that's because of a problem in rhythm and cadence. Let's talk about rhythm first of all. In all of the languages in the world, there are two main classes of rhythm. English and the other European languages belong to a class of languages which are called stress-timed. In stress-timed languages, we lengthen syllables to emphasize certain parts of a sentence. In spoken English, we naturally lengthen some syllables as compared to others. In the first sentence here, Kate would have loved to go on vacation. We emphasize vacation because it's where she would like to go, and we also emphasize love. Kate would have loved to go on vacation. Now, if we use exactly the same words, we signal automatically that that's actually not what's most important about what we're saying. In this sentence here, Kate would have loved to go on vacation, but her boss wouldn't give her the time off. The same words now are the subsidiary idea. What we want to communicate is the boss wouldn't give her the time off. So we change the timing according to the meaning of the words that we're using. In contrast, in the syllable-timed languages, such as Cantonese and Vietnamese, in those languages, the syllables come at equal intervals, and so they sound rat-tat-tat to the English ear. Let me give you an example of that by two phrases spoken first in English and then in Vietnamese, a syllable-timed language.
Hi, I am a professional engineer and I'm from Ho Chi Minh City. Xin chào, tôi là kỹ sư và tôi đến từ thành phố Hồ Chí Minh.
Many Asian languages have the same length for each syllable. These are the so-called syllable-timed languages. English and most other European languages are stress-timed, and it turns out that it's fairly easy for Mandarin speakers to learn standard American rhythm because Mandarin Chinese is also stress-timed. Vietnamese, Cantonese, and certain other Chinese dialects are syllable-timed, and we hear that as cogwheel or machine gun. One of the most difficult problems in normalizing English for non-native speakers is for people who grew up in Singapore. Now, there are lots of jokes about Singapore English, but the problem with Singapore English is that it is English that is spoken with the correct words, but with syllable timing. So it sounds like this. There's a great YouTube video on this by Amos Yee on how to speak Singlish. Let's just take a little clip from it and you can see how he demonstrates one sentence in American English and then the same sentence in Singlish.
Combining all that we've learned, we'll look at the sentence, I would like a bunch of sweets on the teacher's table. In America we say it as, I would like a bunch of sweets on the teacher's table. But in Singlish we have to say it as, I want sweet on teacher table.
So as far as rhythm is concerned, remember that standard American English is stress-timed. We lengthen things to emphasize certain parts of the sentence. Now we're going to turn to cadence. Cadence is changes in loudness and pitch that give the overall shape to a sentence as we speak it. Now, English is not a tonal language like Mandarin Chinese, but it turns out that we do use changes in tone to change the meaning of sentences. Rhythm and cadence go hand in hand. Cadence is the rise and fall in tone with some change in volume or loudness, and the first thing we do is we use it to indicate the ends of clauses and breaks. For example, in this sentence, then, although he was exhausted, he went to the store. Store. It indicates it's the end of the sentence. We emphasize the words that are important. Then, exhausted, and to some extent we emphasize store, although we change the tone there. We use cadence to add some interest in what we're saying, but we also use cadence to change a statement into a question. And we can do that simply by changing our tone. If I want it as a statement, I say, he went to the store. I can take exactly the same words and I can change them into a question. He went to the store. Store goes up at the end, indicates it's a question. In standard American English, we can give lots of changes of meaning to exactly the same sequence of words just by changes in emphasis and tone. Here's a base sentence. Did you give Kwan the project? Spoken in that way, it is a yes-no question. It just means, has this action been accomplished, yes or no? But we can use lots of other different meanings. If we say, did you give Kwan the project? This clearly communicates, are you the person who assigned the task to Kwan? If we say, did you give Kwan the project? That gives the meaning, did Kwan decide to do this for himself, or did you assign it to him? If we say, did you give Kwan the project? And notice there both the emphasis on Kwan and the slight pause. Did you give Kwan the project? This means, I understand you've given the project to somebody, but who exactly was it you gave it to? Lastly, I could say, did you give Kwan the project? The meaning of this is, I understand that you've given a lot of things to Kwan, but did you include giving him the project?
In English, we say, did you give Kwan the project? In Vietnamese, it's quite difficult to emphasize the you. So you actually have to say in another word in order to express that. You have to say, are you the person who gave Kwan this project? Which in Vietnamese is, bạn có phải là người đã đưa Kwan cái dự án này không?
Cadence, rhythm, tone, and emphasis are all bound up together. They're very important for conveying the exact meaning of sentences that are really quite similar. And mastery of cadence, rhythm, and tone leads to compelling and appealing speech. We've learned that rhythm and cadence go hand in hand. They are tremendously important for shaping the overall pattern of sound that native speakers of English expect to hear. Here are some things that you can do to improve rhythm and cadence and achieve standard American pronunciation. The first thing is, it's very important to be aware, to recognize if you have a problem. One of the easiest things that you can do is simply to slow down. If you slow down, you're more likely to achieve a more natural standard English rhythm. A good practice is to mimic, repeat back exactly what you see on TV shows and movies.
Celia.
Griffin, don't ask.
Don't ask you don't know, or don't ask I don't want to know?
Just don't ask. Look, if it's Reggie Goldman you're concerned about, forget it. But be nice to him. He represents a lot of money for
It's not Reggie Goldman I'm worried about. It's Larry Levy.
We repeat back exactly the same. Look, If it's Reggie Goldman you're worried about, it's not Reggie Goldman. The next thing you can do is to deliberately exaggerate the wrong accent. I have people do this in this way. I say, I want you to imagine that you are in the school play and you have been assigned the part of somebody from your country, but somebody who's just arrived in the United States. Now, usually people have great fun doing this and to a point making fun of themselves. The point of the exercise is that if you can exaggerate the accent and make it worse, and if you can think about that, then you can do some things to move it in the other direction, to move it towards standard American pronunciation. The last thing that you can do is to practice using your cell phone, audio recording yourself, reading articles aloud, and then listening back to them on your cell phone. So we have learned that rhythm and cadence are important in shaping the sound of English sentences and in helping to communicate nuances of meaning in standard American English. If you have some difficulty in communicating, despite years of study and considerable fluency in the language, rhythm and cadence would be the first places to start in terms of improving your standard American accent. Just to review, this is what we've learned in terms of easy fixes that you can do. The first thing is to be aware and understand if you're not communicating clearly so that people can understand you. Then the easiest thing that you can do is to simply slow down. If you slow down your speech, it's going to be much easier for you to stress time those syllables. There are some exercises that you can do that will help you improve, and you can do these exercises on your own. I've emphasized mimicking, just simply repeating back things that you hear on TV or on movies. The next thing that you can do is to exaggerate your own accent. For example, somebody from Singapore could speak like this. That is using English words but syllable timing. And the purpose here is that if you can move your own accent worse, then you can make your own accent better. Lastly, record yourself using your cell phone. Set the audio record function and read a couple of paragraphs from a business journal. Stop, listen to it, play it back, and think about how you can improve, and then try the same paragraphs over again. I hope you found this useful.